Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the Last Round Boxing Podcast. Thank you again for joining us. And this week, I don't have a guest, but my co-host is back. Mike, welcome back to the show once again.
Yeah, the man, the myth, the legend. I thought you were going to give me a big introduction there.
Nah, you don't deserve it this week. Maybe next week. But we're going to give you guys a traditional episode this week because we haven't given you guys one in a while. We've given you a lot of interviews with individuals over the last several weeks, but this time we found some similarities in our schedule to give you guys some analysis, some news, some previews and reviews of what's going on in the sport of boxing. So jumping straight back into it, fight reviews this past Friday, the 14th of February, Valentine's Day. Is Valentine's Day a global thing or is it a United States thing?
Definitely in the UK. That's a good question, though. Wonder if like Latin America and all that celebrate it.
Well, I mean, it's like a saint thing, right? Like a religious saint thing, Valentine, something like that. But it is in the UK. You said it, right? So our UK fans who are listening right now, they wouldn't be mad because you said that because that's accurate, right?
100% accurate.
100% accurate. This past Friday, the 14th of February, from the Madison Square Garden Theater in New York City on ESPN Plus, Keshawn Davis remains undefeated at 13-0 as he gets the fourth round knockout over Denys Berinchyk, who takes the first loss of his professional career. Did Davis have the world title, the WBO lightweight title, or he won it, or was this a vacant title?
He won it. He won it from Berinchyk.
He did, right? He did. So, and this is his first world title too, winning in 13 fights. I did see a graphic where they compared Keshawn Davis to other fighters. Like I think De La Hoya was on there, Lomachenko was on there, in terms of getting to a world title in the fewest amount of professional fights. So Keshawn Davis does it in 13 fights. What'd you think about Davis's win and now his first world championship?
Easier than expected. I thought Davis would win, but I thought it would go rounds. I thought Davis may stop him late. I thought Berinchyk was just, rough, tough, has that very awkward style that you get from some of those other fighters, kind of like if you look at like Madrimov and some of those guys, a very awkward, herky-jerky type of style. I thought it was Berinchyk was started relatively slow and sloppy the first couple of rounds, couldn't really manage to land anything clean on Davis. While Davis was kind of doing the usual, we're kind of like starting to see what he did, trying to work out that awkward style. And then, in the third round, Davis catches him coming forward with a left body shot that dropped him. Berinchyk didn't look too hurt, gets back up. And then obviously in the fourth, he, takes him out, unable to beat the 10 count, ending the fight, I think 1:45-minute mark of round 4. So relatively easy night, I think, for Davis. I'm sure he could probably have a week or two out of the gym and get back in there and, come back as, quickly as he can. And I think that's the next thing, right? Where does he go from here? Are we going to see him in there with his boy Shakur? Probably not. Are we going to see him in there with someone like a Gervonta Davis?
Davis just did an interview on a podcast as well, where I think he talked about Keshawn Davis, or he talked about the weight classes and the other fighters in and around his weight class. But Davis was also on, I believe, Ariel Helwani's podcast, and gave some words on there about Davis, because they've been kind of mentioning their names together. Would you say that Gervonta Davis is a cash cow in and around those weight classes, or is it Ryan Garcia?
Just those two?
No. Who's the cash cow in and around those weight classes? We're talking about 135 to 140. And I mean, Ryan Garcia, like, already said that he can't go below like probably 145 anymore. So, but I mean, should we include him? I guess, but who's the cash cow there?
That's a good question, because you never know with these numbers that we get released on Twitter or X, as we call it.
Yeah, you don't know.
They're inflated, but I would say going off everything you see, like Ryan Garcia, maybe, because if you look at like interviews and podcasts and stuff like that, like he's obviously very popular. Whether that means they're going to turn around and buy a boxing event, I don't know. But I would hazard a guess. Ryan is probably the bigger. If you're looking for a cash cow out of those two, I would say probably Ryan.
You think you would get paid more money as in your fight purse by taking a fight against Ryan Garcia than against Gervonta Davis?
Probably, because I think he would just attract more pay-per-views, which would probably bump up your purse a little bit more.
Could be. I mean, it really depends on the marketing. I think Davis has a longer track record, especially selling out or filling up arenas across the country. But Ryan has obviously lesser big events than Davis, I would say, but
only a couple, right? Really, when he fought Gervonta and then Haney.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he has those. They were both significant, though. They're both very significant. I don't know. I think that's a close one. I think either one you're going to get paid decently. Obviously, one of those two. But I think Davis. I mean, they also have. They also have. No, they have similar audiences in some overlapping sense, but I don't know. I would say probably. I would probably say Gervonta Davis is. You probably get paid a little more by fighting him, I would think. But I don't know. Like that's a hard one.
Where's Rick Glazer when you need him? Get Rick on the phone.
We should have had him on this week. But Keshawn Davis, as I give him credit. He did the Ariel Helwani interview shortly after his win and capturing the WBO lightweight championship of the world. So, capitalize on the marketing, the momentum in the media that you have. I mean, you got Teofimo Lopez isn't at lightweight anymore. So we're not going to talk about that fight. Keshawn Davis, Teofimo Lopez. We're not going to talk about that fight because Teofimo Lopez isn't at 135 anymore. Even if you want it to be. Who else? I mean, you got Shakur, but Shakur's with Eddie Hearn now,
and they're like best friends, aren't they? I think they've kind of said they're not going to fight unless it'd have to be ridiculous numbers. I think the two that you're looking at now is Lomachenko, IBF, both with top rank, easy to make. It just depends whether I think Loma still wants to fight, and then also Andy Cruz. You have that from.
Oh, the Cuban?
Yeah, you have that from the amateurs. Obviously there you've got to do a top rank and matchroom, but they have that story where Keshawn couldn't beat him several times in the amateurs.
Do you think that Eddie Hearn would let Andy Cruz go over to ESPN? Assuming that deal continues, because we're going to talk about that later, but assuming it continues between ESPN and Top Rank, would Eddie Hearn let Andy Cruz travel over to ESPN for a shot against Davis and the WBO lightweight championship?
I think so, because I think when you don't allow that, it's because that person is so popular, you're going to miss out on a lot of revenue. And I don't think Andy Cruz is a Ryan Garcia, a Canelo, where you're going to miss out on millions and millions of dollars and eyeballs on DAZN. So I think, and I think he's confident, probably thinking to himself, okay, like Keshawn's really, really good, but Andy Cruz maybe just has his number. He's beaten him in the amateurs, and obviously I know people are going to be shouting, well, the amateurs and pros are different. 100% they are. But maybe he's got his number. Maybe he's just that guy.
If I was Eddie Hearn and DAZN and Matchroom, I would let Andy Cruz if that opportunity presented itself and Top Rank is like, yeah, Davis wants that fight. We want that fight, but it has to be on ESPN and Top Rank has to be the lead promoter. I would follow it. I would, as a promoter or as Eddie Hearn would be, I would go for it because I think, like you said, the amateurs, he beat him in the amateurs. And yes, like you said, professional and amateur are different. But Andy Cruz has such, the hype. I guess the hype is might be the right word around him because of his amateur background and the pedigree he had in the amateurs. Why not give him a shot? Why not give him a shot and throw him over there and let him see if he can let's see if he can capture that world title. If you have so much confidence in him, let him take the shot. And also look at it this way, like he goes over there and even if he loses, he's still early in his career. I mean, look at Lomachenko, even though a lot of people did think he won when he fought Orlando Salido. And I believe that was his first world championship fight. And it was within like 6 fights, 5 fights, something like that? How many?
I think it was 2.
Was it 2? Oh, that was way off.
He had one to get ranked, and then he had another one. His second fight was Orlando Salido, and then on his third fight, he fought, was it Gary Russell Jr. and beat him?
That's insane. But anyways, that's what I'm thinking. It's just like Andy Cruz has a lot of hype behind him because of his prior pedigree in the amateurs, and he has a couple more fights than Lomachenko does at this point in his career. But I would take that. I would take that bet if I was Matchroom. ESPN, Top Rank are like, okay, he has to come over here to our platform. Okay, yeah, we'll send him over there. Like, because think about it. Even if he loses, if he gets like shut out or knocked out or something, it'll affect his stock a little bit. But even if he loses, like he's still young enough and still early enough in his career, Andy Cruz is, where you would think he'd be able to recover, right, in the future?
Yeah, 100%. I'm sure. It'd be a great fight. You just got to hope that, maybe they start pushing it because obviously the talk, it seems to be more about Lomachenko or him because of the WBA kind of rules that he's going to step up and face Teofimo. But I saw a quick interview today where Keshawn Davis was saying that, he doesn't want to give Teofimo that payday due to the, the box of fruit, that was sent to him as a, I don't know what you want to call it, a racist joke, a racist, I don't know what the right words are, I guess.
I don't even know if we should analyze that, but like, do you think there's a chance that was part of the promotion?
I think it was a very, very badly chosen joke or something like that from Teofimo Lopez because he posted that picture of him.
Yeah, like
eating a banana and like kind of like laughing at like kind of the uproar that it caused. I don't know whether
he never actually came out and said that it was him, right? He just posted that troll video kind of indicating that he did it, but he never like said, yeah, we did it. It
was like a very badly chosen WWE skit.
Yeah, I can see that. From the late 1990s. We're talking about the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
Yeah. But kind of putting a bow on the Keshawn Davis win. What do you think about him? Where does he go from here? What does he turn out to be, in the future? Like,
he's going to be a multi-weight world champion, isn't he?
I think so too. I got a lot of confidence in the guy. I think he's how old is he? Do we know?
20. Man, he must be young. He's only just come out of the. I've got box rec up. I'm going to say like 20. I was going to say he's 25. I was going to say 26. So he's
26.
Meaning he's hanging around with, the right people. Like, look at it. He's got Terence Crawford. He's got like Shakur. All of those guys are absolutely amazing. Keshawn is in a very good weight division as well, or in and around very good weight divisions. Lightweight, 140, probably go up to 147 if he wants to.
Like seriously, like there's, and I think we've said this in the past, and we've said this for a while now. There is a hole in American boxing for an American star.
Yeah,
a consistent American star. There is.
He talks well as well. He's
yeah. And like as long as he does, obviously he keeps winning, he stays active, but also puts himself out there for media interviews, podcasts and stuff like that. He'll raise his profile. He will. I mean, he's 25 years old. Like, he has more than enough time to raise that profile. And like you said, it's a good chance he might be a multi-weight world champion. Mm. Like, I think. I mean, looking at the landscape of the American boxing scene, who else comes to mind that might, I mean, we have Terrence Crawford, and some people might say, "Oh, well, Terrence Crawford is should be the American star right now," and it's like, well, in a sense, yes, but like he also hasn't been active, and he has a fight lined up with Canelo Alvarez, which obviously is going to pay him a lot of money and put a lot of eyeballs on it. That's going to be a big fight, and then I think it's supposed to be in Vegas, so that will be a big event. But Crawford's already kind of put in his time and his effort as a fighter. Undisputed at 140, undisputed at 147. He's put in his time, and when he beat Spence, he essentially solidified, like, hey, like, what else do you want me to do? I've literally reached the top of the mountain, like in terms of grit and fighting the stiffest and most viable competition. Then he fought Madrimov, and that was a tough fight. He won that one, but like he's almost he's 37, 38 years old. He's in his late 30s. And I mean, there's a chance he could retire after Canelo. He's like, yeah. He's like, what else do I got? He's like, I go out on top whether I win or lose. Mm. And he makes a ton of money. Like his legacy is solidified. It really is. So, I mean, who else at this moment in the sport? Who else would have the chance to work at being that American star? I mean, who else could it be? Keshawn Davis and who?
I don't think we have one that I would class as like the whole package. We have obviously boxers which are like extremely good, but in terms of being that person that does the media, does everything correct, and you could hang the spot on, I don't think there is one right now. I think we thought Teofimo Lopez was going to be it.
It could have been him.
He could do no wrong when he first started. He did everything. He'd win a fight. He'd stick on like the college final, like T-shirt of the winner. Like they'd come down. He'd do the backflips. His media was good, and then it just all went wrong for him.
I remember when he first got that big he got noticed by like the mainstream is because it was years ago when he did that dance based off the Fortnite, I think.
Right. Yeah. He knew how to relate to everything, didn't he?
Yeah. And it blew up. It blew up. Like kids were talking about him because of the game. And then it went across like mainstream media and all that. Yeah. And I was like, oh, wow. Like that was like, he better capitalize on that. And then I think Top Rank and ESPN saw that and they're like, okay, let's put him on before the Heisman ceremony for American football. And, all these other big events that are shown on ESPN. We'll put them right before and right after. They were trying to associate him with that, and then he took the loss against was it Kambosos? Mm. And then obviously he went through his personal issues at home, and I mean, he's still talented, but he lost the steam. But he's still a very talented boxer. It's just like he was at a point with ESPN and Top Rank where they saw like a star in the making, and it just didn't work out.
Yep. I think I'm quite a few times on here. I remember saying something. I think he was like a promoter's dream.
Yeah.
Everything he did, he had that Midas touch. Everything he touched just turned to gold.
Yeah. 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 But Keshawn Davis, I think he has that shot. And let's see if it works out. I mean, he's at lightweight. Then he goes to 140, then 147. Like, he's in like the perfect weight class at this point of his career to proceed forward, because I mean, I think we know the money weight classes have always been, at least for the last several years, 135 to 160, right? I mean, obviously you got Canelo, but he was at 154 for a while, then he was at 160. Now he's at 168. But I mean, look at it this way. Terrence Crawford was at 147, 140, 147, 154. And now he's going to fight at 168 against the cash cow of the sport. So if that doesn't tell you something,
he's fighting Jake Paul.
Man, what? We'll talk about that. That's not even on the notes. But we'll talk about that. Also, this past Saturday, the 15th of February, from the Co-op Live Arena in Manchester on DAZN, Arnold Barboza Jr. remains undefeated at 32-0 as he gets a hard-fought split decision win over Jack Catterall, who takes the second loss of his career. Arnold Barboza is now the WBO interim super lightweight championship of the world. Barboza won by scores of 115, 113 twice. And then the other scorecard was for Catterall at 115, 113. What do you think about this fight?
Wasn't the best fight to watch. Wasn't a lot of fireworks. Wasn't really too much thrown. Two very highly skilled guys who have both done it. They've taken the long road. I think because they're not, like super fan favorites. They're not getting all of the knockouts. Like, look at Barboza, like you said, 32-0. Like, he's taken the long, hard road to get there to be a world champion. Definitely not a fight that I think you'd want to watch back and spend an hour, rewatching. I think the right man won on the night. I think it was super close, like 115, 113. I think a lot of people were saying like either way, just depending on what you like. Kind of went down to the last couple of rounds, which I think Barboza managed to sneak. I don't think they'll run it back. I'm sure Barboza is probably going to run off and try to fight Teofimo, and I think Jack Catterall's going to have to he's going to be like a George Groves. He's going to be like the guy that wins it at like his third or fourth attempt. So, he's definitely had a long, hard, tricky road himself in Catterall, because he should have really got the decision first time around against, Josh Taylor and been undisputed. Didn't get that, fights Josh again, no belt on the line. And then now look at him, he just fought Barboza, and I think he really started too slowly. I think Barboza kind of had a very good game plan of, trying to get in there. I think he knew that his first punch was kind of like a gimme, knowing that Jack was going to react. And then Barboza tried to kind of like really feed off the third and fourth, which was a great game plan. Obviously he won in the fight in the long run. And then obviously he did it on away soil. So, all respect to Barboza.
I didn't think they were going to give it to him. When I was, because I started watching the fight in the last two rounds. So I watched it live. I had it live on my phone. And when they started reading the scorecards, as soon as they said 115, 113, I was like, oh, man. Is it going to be... I thought it was going to be a draw. But I was like, it's either going to be a draw or they're going to give it to Catterall. I mean, home field advantage, commonplace in the sport, right? And then when they announced it for Barboza, I was like, oh, wow, he actually pulled it off. Like, yeah, that's tough, man. That's tough because, like, by just 2 points or a couple points, he could have lost that fight.
Yeah.
What do you think about? I don't want to call it criticism, but he won the world title, but people were kind of criticizing him, saying, "Oh, it's an interim." I think I'm talking about Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez tweeted about him after and said, "Oh, it's not a real world title; it's the interim belt."
Yeah, I saw that.
What do you think? I think we've talked about this topic before, but is the interim world title the real championship belt, or?
I mean, I think we use it wrongly. It first came about from memory when people were injured and they didn't want the weight division or the championship to go stagnant. So, say Klitschko was out injured, they bring in the interim, and then obviously, when he was back and he was fit, then they would fight. We only had one champion again. And unfortunately, due to the fact that, they get a percentage of the purse, they've just kind of brought that out now just to get, more money for the sanctioning bodies, essentially. Even though the WBO said that they were going to limit and get rid of all of these, gold and super and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it should have been for the interim because Teofimo Lopez is fit and healthy. So it should have been an eliminator or something like that.
I think when I was thinking about this topic right now, that's the exact detail that I was thinking about, is that in the past, in our episodes, we've talked about how these sanctioning bodies, they just throw it in there to get a sanctioning fee and stuff like that, instead of just saying, hey, the winner of this fight is the number one contender for the world title, which Teofimo Lopez has. But maybe the sanctioning bodies look at it in the way of, well, can we still charge these fighters and these promoters for a sanctioning fee and then just to fight for a number one contender spot or an eliminator or whatever it is? Or should we give them some physical reward, which is a title, and just call it the interim championship? What do you think? Should we have an interim championship, physical championship, because they obviously give him the belt. The Barboza received the belt. So they can charge a sanctioning fee, or should the sanctioning bodies just say, hey, this fight is to determine the number one contender for so-and-so's world championship. So if you win this fight, there's a mandatory negotiation period, X amount of days, with the world champion, Teofimo Lopez, for example. I mean, what do you think about that?
No, I think unless Teofimo's injured. If he's injured and they don't want to strip him because, it's a legitimate injury, they've got proof, he's not trying to duck someone, then, Barboza fights Jack Catterall for an interim. If it's just Teofimo Lopez is currently in talks with Richardson Hitchens and they're talking about doing a unification, so they decide to do an interim, no. Either tell Teofimo beforehand, hey, you've got 30 days to come to an agreement with Hitchens and show us proof. If not, the number one contender is A, Jack Catterall, B, Arnold Barboza. You're fighting one of them. If you don't want to fight one of them, you're being stripped.
I just think that, for example, somebody like Barboza, he's worked so hard and had so many fights, had over 30 fights. And I feel like we've been talking about him for years, even when he was with Top Rank, and saying, hey man, Barboza's 27-0. He's 26-0, 28-0. Where's his world title shot? And, then we kind of read between the lines, oh, well, he's not really signed directly with Top Rank. He's promoted by, who's he promoted by?
I can't remember. Was it Zamfa or someone? Or?
Was it? Because he wasn't exclusive to Top Rank, right? And I think that's why we speculated why maybe he wasn't getting the opportunities at that high level. He had to work harder. I mean, it took him 32 fights to get a world title shot.
Right.
So I think him and his team, you know, the road was so difficult and so hard for them to get to this point. And then he has that physical belt in his hands following this split decision win where he had to travel several hours across the ocean from Los Angeles. And he's from El Monte, California, which is just outside of downtown Los Angeles, just outside of downtown the city. So I think it was just more like the journey for him to fight for the physical world championship that he got to hold in his hands. So I think it was that. I think it was that because how many fighters in the past have we talked about where they've given interviews and all that, and they even say like, oh yeah, well I'm fighting this fight, but it's an interim fight. You know, it's I got to fight for the real world title and all that. You know, like they get to keep these interim world titles, right? Like the actual physical belt. It's not like they take them away, right?
Right, parading it around the club.
I mean, you never know. You never know. But Catterall said that he still wants to fight, so he's still going to proceed forward. Barboza. Do we see Barboza and Jose Ramirez? Since they're both Golden Boy?
That's who we just fought.
Oh, they did fight. Oh, man. I don't even know why I forgot that.
Unanimous decision in Riyadh season, November 16th.
That's right. That's right. Man, I think it was over there.
Teofimo. I'm sure he won't want it. He'll want a bigger payday, but I'm sure that's what it should be.
Teofimo still has the ESPN top rank deal, right? Even though they like kind of been rocky.
Got his pay-per-view, he seems to think, right?
Well, that's what he thinks. But lightweight Keshawn Davis in the future? Not next, but in the future?
I could see that with the amount of like beef back and forth eventually. The Twitter spats they keep having.
I mean, in the future, I don't think it's going to be this year, but, you know, maybe next year.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be next because Teofimo signed something right with Turkey Ali Sheikh. So I think he's got some type of big fights boiling away somewhere. So we'll have to see what that is.
But I think Barboza, you know, winning that world title, I mean, congratulations to him and his team because it was obviously very emotional for him. And working so hard, you know, taking 32 fights to at least fight for some type of variation of a world title. It's something. It's something. But what do we know the official rules for like let's say, for example, the WBO, like you said, that they introduced these interim titles in the past because people were injured. But like you said, Teofimo isn't injured. But is it because he hasn't fought? When's the last time Teofimo fought?
I have box rec up.
Like, is there a rule written down for the WBO rules that says, hey, well, the champion hasn't fought in X amount of days, so that goes by our rules and we can do an interim belt?
June. When he fought Steve Claggett and then unanimous decision.
So it's been 8 months? Like, what's the rule? You know?
Right.
Like, what is the rule? Like, I'm sure obviously there's a rule booklet for all these sanctioning bodies, but like you said, initially it was always for injury. Like, oh, the champion's injured, so that's why we have this interim belt. But what is the amount of days? It's like, well, the champion hasn't fought in X amount of days. They're not injured, but they haven't fought in X amount of days. So per our rules, we can do an interim belt. I mean, I'm assuming that's how it works, right?
I'm sure they make their own rules, right? Like
well, I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, at least, is what I'm saying.
You had him on here recently.
No, not him. was trying. I've been in contact with. You're talking about the president of a WBO.
Yeah.
No. I've been in contact with him to try to get him on, but our schedules haven't aligned. So he just ruined the surprise. I was going to get him on. Now I can't get him on for another 2 years.
He's returning. 2 times.
He did some other interviews with some other podcasts recently and stuff like that. So he kind of talked about like similar things. I think he was on shout out to Abraham, FightsATW.com. It's our brand partner, FightsATW.com. Abraham, the founder of that site, did an interview with the president of the WBO, Gustavo Oliveri. That kind of made me think like, maybe I shouldn't get him on for a little bit because he's already been doing some interviews, and I'm trying not to repeat too much information at one time. But yeah, I was trying to get him on to talk about, he just became the new president of the WBO, so that's interesting. He's been on. When was he on our show? Like 2 years ago?
Must be close to that. Yeah.
Right? I think like 2 years, maybe 2023.
Yeah. Towards the end of 23, maybe.
I think it was 2023. Yeah. He was obviously he's been at the WBO for several years but he was the in-house legal counsel at that time. And since then, more recently, he's become the president of the WBO after Paco, who was a president for several years. Recently, he retired sometime in the last several months, right? Towards the end of last year, I think he retired.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure I'll look at these other sanctioning body presidents and see if I can get one of them on. But I think you were thinking about Andy Foster. I had Andy Foster of the California State Athletic Commission. He was on recently. He's kind of like a president. It's just more of a regulatory government agency.
El Jefe.
Moving on. Also this past Saturday from the Honda Center in Anaheim, California on DAZN, Oscar Duarte gets the 29th win of his career at 29-2-1 as he gets the 7th round KO over Miguel Madueno, who takes the 4th loss of his career. I like Duarte, man. I remember when he fought Ryan, you chose Duarte.
Yeah.
And I chose Ryan, and I think you were just like, no, I don't think so. I don't know why you're choosing Ryan. It's not that I didn't have confidence in Duarte. I just looked at it more as Ryan was taller, and he just has that. His hands are fast, regardless of his footwork, and his fundamentals might not be as elite as these other fighters. He has fast hands, and he just throws them out there, and he has power. And his height, and Duarte was obviously shorter than Ryan. And I just thought Ryan would be able to keep him away enough to land one of those fast shots. That's exactly what happened. It's not that I didn't think Duarte could fight. Like if you put Duarte in there with any of these other fighters, like he'll give you a fight. Like that's not even it. But I still think he's a dangerous fighter, man. He's a dangerous fighter where he could be one of those like. What am I thinking? Who would you compare Oscar Duarte to from a past fighter? That's like he might not get to a world title. He might not, but he'll still have a decent career and he'll be a dangerous opponent for anybody. Who could you compare that to from a past fighter?
I don't know. Yeah, like a Gatti, I guess.
Do you think so? Like that?
Probably too much, but you kind of put me on the spot. But, like someone that's good to watch, like a workman-like performance, come forward, attacking. That was the first kind of person that really came to mind. Obviously, Dwight's not as popular, anywhere near as popular as that. But, he's always good to watch. He's had some good scalps recently as well, like Jojo Diaz. He beat him, didn't he, a couple of fights ago?
Right.
And then the original fight obviously was supposed to be Regis Prograis, who got injured like a week or two before the fight. So Madueno, is it you pronounce it? Like he came in as a standing opponent, obviously not nowhere near the same type of caliber in terms of name as Regis Prograis. So that would have been a really good fight to watch, I think. Crafty, kind of southpaw against someone like Duarte. So, but he's all action. Duarte just pressure. So he's always good to watch.
I think he's a young enough guy too, right? He might be like in his late 20s.
Yeah, he's been around for so long. I remember watching him at Fantasy Springs.
No, yeah, but like I think he's been around because he started younger. I think, right? I mean, I think he's maybe 29. I think.
Spot on. Yeah, 29.
29, right?
Yeah.
So he still has some years to work with.
He turned pro 12 years ago.
That's what I'm saying. He's been around for a long time. You're right. We would see him at Fantasy Springs Casino in Indio, California. Like
he was 17.
Yeah, he's been around for a long time. So I think, even at 29, obviously it's later, but because he is action-packed and he's Mexican, I mean, Canelo's already proved and it wasn't like Canelo was the first one to prove. Obviously, we had Chavez and stuff like that. I'm talking about like fighters from Mexico. But obviously, the most recent example is Canelo Alvarez, where he's proved like, hey, you can become a star, and you're action packed. Like when Duarte throws punches, he throws his strength behind him. So and people, they want to see action. So. You think he wins a world title?
I don't think he's got that type of backing, unfortunately.
What do you mean?
I don't think someone would want to position him into that to get in there, especially at 140. It's such a strong division. I don't know if he attracts enough fans, enough money for someone to really get behind him and back him and push him all the way. They used to. I mean, I know Golden Boy for a time being were backing him, and that was how he managed to train with Joel Diaz, because they used to give him some money so he could come over and he'd stay and train with Joel. And then I asked Joel, I was like, how come he doesn't train with you anymore? He's with you for the longest time, but that was the reason. Golden Boy cut like some of the expenses, and that was why he had to move back to Mexico and then now trains with his current team.
That makes sense. I mean, you got to look at it as an investment too, like these other athletes for these other professional sports. You draft these young athletes, and obviously the ones who have a more, promised pedigree in the amateurs and the collegiate level and all that, you're going to be competing with other teams and, agencies for those services. So you're going to try to offer more money and more perks. It's just kind of like, okay, it's kind of increasing your investment. Obviously, if Golden Boy, and I'm sure other promoters do it, but if Golden Boy was giving money to these trainers because they said, hey, we want to give money to her so he can train, they obviously had some type of confidence that he might turn out to be something that it is worth their investment in the future. Right? I mean, and maybe they stop. Maybe that's why they, maybe that's, like you said, Joel Diaz told you that. He's like, oh, well, Golden Boy stopped giving us money for his training, so that's why he went back to Mexico. Well, maybe because he's already had quite a few fights and he got paid, he's made some money, like okay money. So now they're looking at it like, oh, okay, well, we already got him to that point, so we can stop investing in the training aspect because he can do it on his own now. Mm. And maybe he looked at it like, it's cheaper for me to train in Mexico. My money's going to go farther over there instead of staying over here.
100%.
And he's also Mexican. He speaks Spanish. Like, he's from Mexico. Just maybe homesick, but.
Just a random point, because I just saw this as you were talking. Obviously, Duarte just fought Jojo Diaz not recently. Jojo's lost 6 of his last 7.
I'm not surprised by that because when you referenced Jojo Diaz a couple minutes ago, when we were talking about it, or you were mentioning something, like I quickly or briefly thought about that, how Diaz has, like, he was the guy at first. He was on the Olympic team. You know, like, I remember, I think I first saw him in like 2015. I think when I first saw his first fight, like in person in Los Angeles here. And I kind of saw him, you know, with these other fighters, because there was other fighters, because obviously Golden Boy is the most prominent promoter that's closest to us. So I think naturally we get a lot of exposure to the Golden Boy stable because they're closer to us. And I remember seeing Jojo Diaz, and they had another fighter, Christian Gonzalez, Chimpa Gonzalez. Ryan was there. They picked up Ryan too. They had other ones. But Jojo Diaz, out of like the pack that they had, you know, going back 10 years ago, Jojo Diaz, I think, has kind of been the most bang for your buck that they got out at their investment. But obviously his last, 5 or 6 fights haven't went his way. He went through some stuff too that he had to deal with, but he can make a comeback here because he's maybe 31, 32 maybe?
32, yeah.
He could still maybe get some money out of a decent fight, or, you never know. You never know. Look at Crawford. I'm not comparing it to Crawford, but
here, aren't we? Because he got released by Golden Boy and ended up at Pro Box.
Right. But he's still a name in a sense. Look at Pedraza. He's been used everywhere, just because of his pedigree.
Yeah, his name.
Yeah, and he fought this person. The marketing associated with the name helps your stature as an opponent. And I think Jojo Diaz might be right there, but he could still cause an upset somewhere. I remember was it Kiko Martinez who upset? Didn't he upset?
Was it Josh Warrington? He knocked out someone big.
Wasn't it Warrington?
Was it Warrington? I think he beat a couple, right? Warrington and Kid Galahad.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Look at Kiko Martinez. That guy, he pulled it out somehow, and then he still got some high-profile fights out of it and some decent money out of it.
Legend, Kiko.
Yeah, you could still do it. You could still do it. I remember, and this guy was like a one-hit wonder, but I went to a PBC event at the Honda Center in Anaheim, oddly enough, where the Oscar Duarte fight was this past weekend for Golden Boy and DAZN. And it was, I believe, Robert the Ghost Guerrero against, was it Peralta? I believe it was Peralta. This guy from Argentina. And he was promoted by Samson. He was promoted by Samson. And this guy was a legitimate cab driver.
David Peralta.
David Peralta. See, I knew it. I was right. He was a legitimate taxi, cab driver in Argentina. Legit. People call fighters cab drivers. This guy was a legit cab driver, and he beat Robert the Ghost Guerrero. He beat him. And I remember he came to the media section after the fight with Samson, and he was all happy, and then Samson was all happy. He's like, oh, he's going to be back. He's going to be back. He's going to be back. And I think in his next fight, he might have fought Argentina, and he lost. You never heard anything from him again. But that was his moment in the sun right there. I remember I was just like, oh, this guy. And I remember seeing Samson's face because he was right in front of us. Samson's face was all, excited because I think he looked at him as, well, I got this guy. He came out of nowhere. He came in as not even the B side. He was the C side. And he won. Nobody expected him to win, so maybe I can make some money off of this guy. And that's how I looked at it. I was like, oh, well, good for you. What an investment that turned out to be. But after that, didn't really hear for anything from him again because I think he just ended up losing. And I don't know if he retired or whatnot, but it didn't work out. It obviously didn't work out. So, also on the card at the Honda Center, Ricardo Sandoval gets the 26th win of his career as he's now 26-2 with the 10-round unanimous decision win over Saledo Henderson, who takes the first loss of his career. Sandoval's a young kid too, right? He might be like in his early 20s. Where do you think he ends up?
It's a strange one because he was highly ranked for a time being and then had that couple of fights that we were at where he lost to like a lowly opponent and then came back, and just another one maybe like too quiet for his own good. Maybe he needs to call people out, do some more media, become...
He's been on the show once or twice with us, right?
Yeah, he's been on the show, yeah. Just needs to get out there, gets his name out there, more. And then I think, that's something that he needs because it's a business.
It is. But I think he's got some time. He's a young guy still. I think they're a little bit of ways. Well, he is 26-2. So he's had a lot of fights already, but I think he's getting there. But he's kind of on maybe, he has some setbacks initially with the 2 losses, but I think Golden Boy, they're getting to that point where they're going to really throw him in there with somebody to kind of, I guess, sink or swim or see what the investment, if it pays off and all that. Moving on to this upcoming weekend fight previews. This upcoming Saturday, the 22nd of February, from the Kingdom Arena in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia on DAZN. The rematch. Arguably the best fight of the year so far. Could be even the best fight of the whole year, even when it's already December. Artur Beterbiev, 21-0, puts his undisputed light heavyweight championships on the line again. Actually, this is the first time because Bivol had the first belt the first time, as he goes up against Dimitry Bivol, 23-1. Beterbiev pulled it off the first time in a close, hard-fought fight. Does it happen again? What do you think?
No. Thank you very much.
I agree. No, I agree. I think Bivol takes it. I think Bivol takes it this time, and we see a trilogy.
I think he's going to realize that he didn't throw enough the first time. I think he thought that he was ahead on the cards, but I think the judges just liked Beterbiev's more powerful work, where I think, Bivol probably realized that he left a little bit on the table. And I think this time he'll probably go out there and, try to snatch the early rounds and make sure there's a bigger gap between, him and Beterbiev this time round. And Beterbiev's older, had a lot of injuries, father time's unbeaten, as we always say on the show. So I think that's probably not going to play into his hands too much. I think Beterbiev wins. And then, like you said, we'll probably end up getting a third.
You think Beterbiev wins or Bivol?
Sorry, Bivol. Did I say Beterbiev? Sorry, Bivol. I think Bivol wins on points.
A close card?
I think it'll be further. I think he'll throw a lot more, which kind of goes against the way that Bivol really does it. But I think they'll probably drill that into him. Like, hey, you need to do more this time around. There needs to be a bigger body of work for them to judge. So I think that's something that he'll probably do. And I think like an 8-4, 7-5 type of scorecard, I think.
116, 112?
Yeah, I think it'll be something like that this time around.
Does anybody go down?
No, because I think Bivol was going to trying to be more elusive. And I don't see him knocking Beterbiev down. And I think that he's going to be on his bike a lot more. Going to be punching from range, keeping it at long and middle distance, trying to just really annoy Beterbiev to the point where he starts to take more risks, which plays into Bivol's hands, I think.
I can see that. I think. See, I picked Bivol the first time, but I didn't. It's one of those soft picks where I thought, okay, I'm picking him, but it's, I wouldn't be surprised if he loses. But if you have to be twisting my arm, I'm going to be I'm going with Bivol. And it was still a hard-fought fight.
It's like you say, it's a genuine 50-50 fight.
Yeah, this is legitimately a 50-50 fight. It is. Like legit 50-50 fight. And the first fight proved that. You know, it was close. So I think Bivol wins this time, and they end up having a trilogy. And they have a trilogy probably, maybe the end of the year, November?
Yeah, they'll probably have to do it quickish because I don't see Beterbiev having many fights left.
But I also think now that Canelo signed a deal with Riyadh Season and Saudi Arabia, they want to do a Bivol rematch with Canelo next year, because next year they have the two fights with Canelo Alvarez, and I think they want one of those two fights next year to be Bivol. I mean, that's what I think. So Bivol wins is our guess this Saturday, and they do a trilogy at the end of this year. And next year, one of the two fights for Canelo is the Bivol rematch.
I'll take it. Repeat or revenge.
Does Canelo fight Beterbiev next year if Beterbiev wins this Saturday? Like, does Beterbiev even get consideration? He should. But Bivol is a naturally smaller 175er. Right. But does Beterbiev get any consideration for a Canelo sweepstakes next year if he wins?
Does it sound weird that Beterbiev beat Bivol, but Canelo probably has a better chance against Beterbiev? Does that sound weird? I think he plays into Canelo's style more because he's not a mover. The reason that Canelo lost to Bivol is he couldn't catch him. He couldn't corner him. He couldn't walk him down.
I guess I could see that. I can see what you're getting at.
You know, styles makes fights, essentially, right?
Right. No, I could see exactly what you're getting at, but Beterbiev is still extremely dangerous.
100%. I think the only thing that gets him is Father Time because he's just that good. You know, like if you look at the record, was Bivol the first or second person to go? People say that they want to see Benavidez against Canelo because Benavidez is his most dangerous opponent. I disagree in terms of the danger as most dangerous. I think that Bivol and Beterbiev are more dangerous than Benavidez is against Canelo. I think they're all close. Like, that's not the same. I'm not saying that Benavidez is like not right there, but I'm telling you, like, in terms of, I think Canelo has more of the tools to beat a David Benavidez than he does to beat. I mean, he's already lost one time to Bivol, but Canelo's tools and skills are more associated with being able to beat somebody like David Benavidez than they are to beat Artur Beterbiev or Dimitry Bivol. But he has the skills to beat them all three. But in terms of difficulty, I would put Benavidez probably in 2B, maybe 3. I'd probably put Bivol 1 as most difficult. Then maybe Beterbiev at 1B, and then maybe Benavidez at 2. I mean, what do you think? I mean, I think you're muted. Yeah, you're muted. But like I said, 1A would be Bivol, 1B Beterbiev, and then 2 Benavidez. What do you think? Yeah, no, I would agree. I think, we've seen the Bivol fight. Obviously, he beat him. Just elusive, moves too much, boxes, which found it hard for Canelo, being the smaller man, to catch him or walk him down. Whereas, Beterbiev and Benavidez, they're going to be there. to be hit. And then obviously it's a big target for Canelo for him to hit on. But then obviously, those guys are probably going to be walking into the ring at, God knows, 200 pounds, 210 pounds. So they're going to have the size and weight advantage. But then obviously Canelo's going to have that bigger target. And obviously they're going to have a smaller target because they're fighting someone, substantially smaller than them. So it's going to be harder for them to hit, essentially. But yeah, at the minute, it's a pipe dream, right? Maybe next year, like you said, hopefully we get to see him in there with one of those guys because he's kind of running out of opponents at 168. The fact that they're digging down to 140, 147 to fight Crawford and drag him up kind of shows that he's beating everybody of kind of note in that division. Yeah, big time. Big time. So we're going Bivol, and then Trilogy happens at the end of the year. Also on the card, this is a great card. Stacked card. Daniel Dubois, 22-2, goes up against Joseph Parker, 35-3 for the IBF Heavyweight Championship of the World. What do you think about this matchup? It's crazy, isn't it? When you look at like Dubois, like a couple of years ago, and Parker, like Parker was on the end of some losses, and then now look at him, he's fighting for the IBF, and then Dubois lost to like Joe Joyce, and then Usyk, and then now he's the IBF Heavyweight Champion. I've never honestly been the biggest fan of Parker. I honestly think he's overrated. I think he's making a lot of money though. He's made the most out of his career. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable the amount of money that he's made in the fights that he's been in. I think, if you look at his recent victories, I think he's just been kind of lucky that he got a Wilder that had gone away and done mushrooms and come back and like a hippie, like peace and love, and didn't really want to box anymore. So I think he's been lucky in that sense. And then I think Dubois now I think he's realized kind of like the original version of Joshua, where Joshua used to just get in there and just be like, I'm just going to come at the guy as fast as I can and try to knock him out because he was so good. And I think Dubois has kind of got on that, and his confidence, you can just see his confidence is beaming, when he does an interview now, he gives an actual answer instead of just giving like a 1 or 2 word answer and kind of sitting there because he doesn't know what to say. He's kind of embarrassed and, he's got no confidence about him. So in that instance, I think Dubois probably takes him out 4 or 5 rounds. I think Parker is honestly massively overrated. Man, say that again for the people in the back. I'm going Dubois though. I agree. I'm going Dubois. I think the Anthony Joshua win really gave Dubois like a nice spark, a nice kick in the butt. It's kind of good that, we've been in there and done so many rounds with him. I think he obviously gave that confidence as well, getting in there with like the unknown. So obviously in his head, he's probably thinking like, okay, I've sparred him so many times, kind of knows what's going to be coming at him. And then obviously in his head, he's young and he's probably believing that, I'm the best in the world and I'm just going to go in there and I'm just going to attack him. And that's essentially what he did. He just ran at him. Yeah, big time. Big time. Also on the card, Carlos Adames, 24-1, goes up against Hamzah Sheeraz, 21-0 for the WBC Middleweight Championship of the World. Another great matchup here. What do you got here? Oh. That's a tough one, huh? Yeah, just because Adames, I'd never really watched him and thought he was that great. I was there. It was Adames who lost to Teixeira, right, in the Cosmopolitan? I think so, yeah. The championship. And then that was a night when Teixeira just threw so much. Adames just didn't know what to do. I think Sheeraz is very, very good. And I don't know whether can you still say potential, a good prospect with the fact he's fighting for the WBC middleweight title. But I think he wins this. I think he's very good, does the basics very, very well, powerful. And it looks like from previous times, I think Adames just doesn't throw enough. I think Sheeraz, I'm going to go for it. I think Sheeraz knocks him out. I think he late, like around 8 or 9, I think Sheeraz finishes him. I think he just slowly builds into it. And I think this is the kind of building Sheeraz in Saudi Arabia. I think, just the fact that he's, comes from that background and stuff like that. I think, and they're kind of looking for a prospect, aren't they? I think it's just how it is. They're looking for somebody to kind of like attach Riyadh season 2, and I think he is that. I've met him a few times. I told you, but I texted you at the time. I met him at the airport one time, and I was chatting to him before he fought Williams.
You went up to him, right? And he was just like, "Oh yeah, that's me."
Yeah, and I went up to him, I started chatting to him. Then I was talking to him in the LA Saudi Arabia card. He recognized me. I was chatting to him there. Super nice guy.
Let's get him on if you.
Right? Yeah, I'm sure. He invited us down to the gym, and he's trained with the Guzin's gym.
Yeah, is it Van Nuys?
Ricky Funes.
Yeah, I think is it Van Nuys?
Yeah, he invited us down.
We should get over there. When he's
yeah. He's cool. Once he wins this and he's champ, we'll go.
Yeah, that's what we need. Like, no, we don't want to go over there yet until you're champ.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good matchup, though. I so far so good on the 3-for-3 fights in terms of matchups here. Also on the card, which is, I think, besides the Beterbiev Bivol, like I'm really looking forward to this fight because I think this is a 50-50 matchup. Vergil Ortiz Jr. 22-0 goes up against Israil Madrimov 10-1-1 for the WBC interim super welterweight title. Now Ortiz has already been in some tough fights. Madrimov obviously is coming off of the Crawford fight. I mean,
this is hard.
It sucks for Ortiz because what really hurt like the development of his career is when he got sick and then he had the weight issues because of his body and what he was going through. Because if that didn't unfortunately happen to him, where would he be right now? Would he have a world title already? He could have been defending his world title already like 3 times.
Yeah, this is a hard one. I think this is going to be interesting because I think this is a very, very, very different style for Vergil Ortiz Jr. to look at. Because I think originally
Crawford had a tough time with him.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I first looked at it, and obviously I knew we were going to have to do the reviews, my initial pick in my head was Madrimov on points. I think his awkward, herky-jerky style just might be too much for Ortiz. Madrimov also has a very good chin. Just ultimate professional, super fit, just always comes in looking like really, really good. And I think
those Eastern European fighters, man, they're insane.
Yeah, exactly. It's just I'm going to go Madrimov points. I think he's just going to be very awkward style for Ortiz, and I think Ortiz has just had, because he was knocking people out, I think they started kind of feeding them to him because he had that long streak. And then, Madrimov has kind of been in with a lot of different styles, huge amateur career, and then look how close he went with Terence Crawford. You know what I mean? There were certain parts of people who thought he won it, there's literally like a coin flipped on who won that because there wasn't a lot of action. I was ringside for that one, and it was super hard to pick because neither of them really did anything, to be honest with you. But turning my attention to this fight, I think Madrimov. I think points. Yeah.
I think
it's the hardest one. It's the hardest one to pick that on this card.
You would think the Beterbiev Bivol would have been it, but I think I'm going to go with. I think I'm going to go with Madrimov too.
That's such a weird style. And it's going to take you rounds to get used to it. Before you know it, you're down points. And that's what I think is going to happen to Ortiz. Because, he left that gym before they came there, or else he would have kind of already have seen it.
Right. That's exactly right. That's exactly what I was thinking, too, as I was, debating on who to pick.
But he's back with Robert, right?
Yeah. But it's not that Ortiz has heart, and he's already been in some tough fights. He's been in there. He is fighting at 154. His body's a little bit more naturally accustomed to 154. He couldn't make 147 anymore. So those 7 pounds are lifesavers for fighters.
He got dropped last fight, didn't he? Didn't Berinchyk drop him?
Didn't he slip? Or did he get
Ortiz down in rounds 1 and 8?
Yes, that's right.
Remember
Sergey Berinchyk, and he still won that fight too.
I'll read you the scorecards out: 113-113, 114-112, 114-112 for the WBC interim super welterweight. That was August.
That was an interim super welterweight title, and this is an interim super welterweight title. What's going on here?
I'm surprised you're surprised, Danny.
Oh, man. See, but how much did Ortiz learn from that fight against Boachuk? And now that he's back with Robert Garcia, I think that helps him in this fight against Madrimov. I think him fighting Boachuk and going through what he went through against Boachuk and still winning the fight, barely. Some people think he didn't win, but he it's not that he didn't fight hard to try to still get the win. And now he's returned with Robert Garcia. I think it has really elevated his chances at winning. I mean, think about it. You're going to fight somebody like the caliber of Madrimov just because those Eastern European skills and all that. Who better than somebody like Robert Garcia, who has essentially so much talent in his gym to be able to help you? And he's been through it.
100%. I mean, I think regular listeners to this show know how much we rate that gym. It's unbelievable. I
mean, because he wasn't back with Robert Garcia at the Boachuk fight, right?
I think he might have been for that one. I think it might have been. When did he go back? I think he may have been for that one. I think it might have been the ones before that, like when he fought maybe like Lawson and Delorme. I can't remember exactly when he went back, because he had that big gap in between there of 2 years. Because 2022 he fought Michael Mickinson, and then he didn't come back until 2024, like you said, due to the stomach problems he was having.
Yeah, I think this is a very good fight. It's going to be a tough fight, but yeah, I this might be this one or Beterbiev Bivol. I think it's a toss-up for me in terms of like high level competition of the night. Like all these fights are all very good matchups. I mean, you got to give credit to Riyadh season and all them, regardless of, what you think about politics and what, from a boxing standpoint, excluding everything else, these are matchups that we want to see. These are matchups. But yeah, in terms of high level competitiveness, it's a toss-up between this Ortiz versus Madrimov fight and Beterbiev and Bivol fight. Like this is a tough fight. But I think I agree with you. I think I'm leaning towards Madrimov enough to be able to say it. But Ortiz, it's not that he hasn't proven, man. He's been in there with some tough fights, man. He's been in there with some tough fights, and he's just been unfortunately, because he's had his medical issues and stuff. It's kind of give him a setback for a little bit in his career, but he's trying to play catch up here. So let's see what happens. But yeah, that's a good fight. This is a really good fight. And then we got Shakur Stevenson, 22-0, goes up against Floyd Schofield, 18-0. I think Stevenson is the heavy favorite here, but you got to give it to Schofield that they were open to this fight. And Stevenson wasn't even looking at Schofield until Schofield called him out, and Stevenson was like, "Oh, you want to fight me? Okay, it's already kind of tough for me to get some type of names to fight me. If you're serious, I'll take it." And obviously Schofield and Golden Boy were serious enough, and they're putting him in there. I think for Schofield, it's a win-win situation, because even if he loses, he's losing against somebody who's already the heavy favorite, and Stevenson's such an excellent fighter regardless of what you think about him. And Schofield's young enough to be able to recover from it and learn from it, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think, like you said, I think Shakur Stevenson wins the fight, probably like a wide point decision. But like you said, it kind of shows you the power of what you can do on social media, right? Like if you just kind of talking trash and kind of saying like, "Hey, I'll take it," and then also, Shakur kind of calls him out like, "Okay, let's do it," and then Schofield didn't back down. So like you said, It's kind of like win-win, because not only are you losing to someone who's a heavy favorite, you're losing to someone that's already a multi-weight world champion. So kind of a gimme, right? You get in there, you may get a lucky punch, drop him, maybe. And also you get to, I'm sure it's a very nice payday over in Saudi Arabia. So, yeah, win-win for Schofield.
Yeah. It works out for him, man. Yeah. It works out for him. And if he pulls off the win, man, what a moment that would be. But I think we're going the pretty safe route here and going with Stevenson. Stevenson's already proven that he has a high-level boxing IQ, regardless if people think he's not that exciting or not. He obviously has a high-level boxing IQ. Also on the card, Zhilei Zhang, 27-2-1, goes up against Agit Kabayel, 25-0 for the WBC interim heavyweight title. Zhang is one of those ones. He's dangerous, man. He's like 40, but he just has he probably has heavier hands than Beterbiev. He's just dangerous.
Yeah, interesting matchup, really. Zhang, 41. And then you've got someone like Kabayel coming up who kind of hit the scene over his last couple of fights. He's been around for a long time, fought Chisora back in 2017. But then I think it was the Riyadh season where he fought that guy that has no neck, that looks like a Bond villain.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Madrimov or something. TKOs him in the 4th. And then last summer, everyone was talking about Frank Chences. Boom, KOs him in the 7th. So I think he's on a bit of a tear. So you know what? I'm going to go for the upset. I think it'll be an upset anyway. I haven't got the odds here, but I think Kabayel. I think Kabayel wins. I'm going to go points. I don't think Zhang's ever been knocked out. No. So yeah, I think Kabayel on points.
I think I'm going Zhang. He's just so powerful, man. He's older, but he's just got such heavy hands. He's like a Beterbiev. He's just bigger.
He's 6'6", Kabayel 6'3". And Zhang really only has one loss, Parker, because when he fought Hrgovic, he got robbed.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah, so it should be 28-1, really. But good fight, another good fight.
Next one, rounding off the card, Joshua Buatsi, 19-0 against Callum Smith, 30-2 for the WBO interim light heavyweight championship. Is Callum Smith, is it past the time for him, or does he have a shot here?
There's another one. I've never rated him. Who's he ever fought really of any note? Same with Buatsi, really 19-0. Who's he ever fought? To say that we've always been going on so high about him, especially the British fans. Craig Richards, Dan Aziz, Willie Hutchinson. I think Buatsi, though, this is probably his biggest fight, in my opinion, so far, even though he's the WBO interim light heavyweight title holder. I think Buatsi wins. I think he stops Callum Smith late.
9th, 10th round? Or we're talking about championship rounds?
Yeah, I think he stops him late, 10, 11, 12, because, Callum Smith, literally his entire career of 30 wins. The big names of note on there: Beterbiev lost, Canelo lost, and then John Ryder in a fight that he probably actually could have lost. George Groves, who went on to retire afterwards. Nicky Holtzen, a kickboxer. And then I don't even know who the rest of them. Rocky Fielding was British level, managed to squeeze a title fight against Canelo somehow and then disappeared into the sunset. And then who else? You look at his record, there's nobody on there. But they always talk about how a good fighter he is and how much of a big puncher he is. But he's never fought anybody. Yeah.
No, you're right. Rocky Fielding, I haven't heard that name in a while.
He was easy work, wasn't he? I think Canelo said he was his easiest fight.
How much money did he get paid for that?
What do you reckon?
I mean, he literally he made it just by when he got that fight, when he got paid.
Probably what do you reckon, $5 million or something?
I think at least. I think he got at least between 5 and maybe 8.
Remember Jacobs? Was it Jacobs or Plant? Got 12 million?
I think Jacobs got more than Plant.
Plant did it because he knew that he was selling his IBF. He knew they needed that trinket to be undisputed. So he knew he could charge silly money.
Yeah, him and Plant and Jacobs definitely, in terms of the fights, the opponents for Canelo the last 7-8 years or something. Plant and Jacobs definitely probably got the most bang for their buck, I would say. Yeah, I would definitely say that. News and notes section of this week's episode of the Last Round Boxing Podcast. ESPN has reportedly informed Top Rank it will be moving on after their 8-year partnership concludes in August of this year, according to Front Office Sports. Top Rank, whose founder and CEO Bob Arum originally signed the ESPN deal in 2017. The following year, the deal was amended to a 7-year pact for 54 events annually split between ESPN and ESPN Plus after Top Rank drew over 1.5 million viewers per show in the first year of the deal. So I guess there was other information that came out since then that says that they could possibly amend or still agree to another deal, maybe at a lower cost. Do you think that happens? I mean, obviously, for somebody like ESPN, if the number's low enough, they're like, oh, that's worth it. They'll do it again. Does it work that way? What do you think?
I think, if, like you said, if the numbers are right, because they need content, what's going to fill those slots that they've been using for the last, 7-8 years?
Right.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's all about content. And obviously you also have the back catalogue of fights. That's going to disappear off the ESPN Plus app as well.
And ESPN is a sports network. Like, they're a sports network. It's not like they're under the Disney banner, but Disney has so much, their portfolio is so vast. ESPN is literally a sports network. So it's not like, are they going to be able to make a deal with Saudi Arabia and Turkey al-Sheikh? I mean, I don't think the politics work in terms of, what Disney has always been supporting over the years and what they think about somebody like the country of Saudi Arabia. Does that infiltrate any potential deal there? Like, because ESPN obviously wants the fights to be on their network, and Golden Boy's already has a deal with DAZN and has a pact with Turkey al-Sheikh. Matchroom is there. PBC, they're slowly just fading away.
Frank Warren
has the deal with DAZN, Turkey al-Sheikh. Top Rank is really the only one left.
You've got to wonder, do they have to go to DAZN? DAZN could just shut them out.
Right.
If they wanted to play hardball and just turn around and say, hey, all the fights are either on DAZN or you're going to have to fight yourself.
Right. I think ESPN knows the ball's in their court. I can see Top Rank, if Turkey and DAZN come up to him hey, we'll offer you this much money. Obviously, money talks. If they say, oh, they're offering a lot of money, we have to go over there. But also,
it's the last two pieces of the pie, right? DAZN. If you think of the big ones, there's only Top Rank and PBC left in terms of the big fight promoters. The rest of them are already there. Golden Boy, Matchroom, and Frank Warren.
Right. Exactly. And I think Turkey and Riyadh season, they're going to make a play for Top Rank. They're going to try. But also, you also got to think about it too, is there's been these reports about Endeavor, TKO, Dana White starting a boxing league. Are they going to, we saw a report last year, they got some traction about Top Rank being sold to TKO, Endeavor, UFC or whatever. Is that going to resurface? Is Endeavor, TKO going to buy up Top Rank? I mean, UFC is based in Vegas. Top Rank is based in Vegas. They would have Dana White run it. It's already in Vegas. So is that going to come out in the next couple months? That Endeavor bought Top Rank and then they, maybe they sign a deal with, if Endeavor and TKO get involved, they buy Top Rank and they own Top Rank, then that gives them more negotiation power because Endeavor, TKO are a lot more reputable in terms of, contracts and money. Like they're powerful. They're powerful people over there. So that would open up more doors for boxing, at least a top ranked stable, to be able to go to Netflix, to be able to go to Amazon Prime Video. Because then Endeavor, TKO, if they own Top Rank, and then they go, the UFC rights come up, TV rights come up, they can tell whoever they're negotiating with, whether it's Netflix, Amazon Prime, or whoever, and say, well, what about boxing? We have Top Rank now. Do you want that? And then they're be like, oh, we don't want that. Like, oh, okay, then we have no deal. You take this and you take that, or we have no deal. Then they could do that.
It's funny because the UFC deal's up at the end of the year.
That's what I meant. That's why I said it. Yeah.
So imagine if they lost both. The UFC Top Rank goes to DAZN. The UFC goes to Netflix. ESPN have just lost how much content?
Right. Like ESPN wants to keep UFC. That's who they want to keep.
100%.
But
the pay-per-view revenue must be mental.
Yeah, if Endeavor buys Top Rank, TKO, Endeavor, it gives them more negotiation power with ESPN. Because then they can just say, oh, okay, well, Netflix is interested. Netflix is interested. Amazon Prime is interested. If you want the UFC, which is the gold mine, you also have to take our boxing catalog. And we own Top Rank now. Oh, well, we don't want boxing. We just want UFC. Okay, well, if that's what you want, this is the price for UFC. And if they match it, then they're just going to be like, oh, okay, you're paying us so much money, we have to take that deal. But they're going to give us such a high number, you would think, that's too astronomical for like ESPN or whatever, or whoever they're negotiating with, Amazon Prime, where they're going to be like, oh, no, that's too high for us. Be like, okay. Be like, well, give us a number, but you have to include our boxing portfolio. I mean, ESPN is in a tough spot in terms of like, they're dedicated to sports. It's not like ESPN shows like drama shows and movies and stuff like that. They are a sports network. So that's the content that they need and they want. So does Top Rank stay with them? My guess, if I had to speculate, is Endeavor, TKO buys up Top Rank, and then leverages them into the deals that they have with the upcoming UFC TV deals.
You heard it here first, guys.
I mean, it sounds probable, right?
No, 100%. Yeah. If Bob Arum puts a reasonable price on it, I mean, the dude's 90-something. He's got to retire soon, right?
Yeah. I mean, it just... How much power does he actually still have, though?
And not to be mean, but some of the shows that he's been putting on ESPN have been trash. He's lost Terence Crawford, Shakur's left and went to Matchroom. Teofimo Lopez is causing him a headache. The stable isn't what it used to be. Granted, he does have some unbelievable talent coming through, like we saw on the weekend. But one headache too much, maybe.
Right. No, yeah, that's exactly right. But yeah, the rest of this year, I mean, these TV deals, like, they're interesting times, these negotiations, because it kind of sets a bar for that sport. And for these TV deals. And now the streaming is so significant, and Netflix is already kind of tipping their toes in American football. And I guess if you want to call it boxing, like, that's big. That's big. They're probably already kind of evaluating whether they want to really dive in. Like, oh, do we really want to do this full? Like, do we want a section for this? Like, yeah, this year, but the UFC is the cash cow this year. Last year or whenever it was, the WWE was. Like, they were big, and Netflix obviously got them. But this year, it's the UFC, and they're both in the same company, Endeavor, TKO, or whatever it is. So, yeah, the UFC is going to garner some big money. They're going to garner some big money. So, And I can see, Netflix picking them up. I could see it. I can definitely see it. But we appreciate you guys listening to this week's episode of the Last Round Boxing Podcast. We're trying to get in contact with some people. We've been in contact with some people to get you guys some more interviews in and around the sport of boxing or in relation to the sport of boxing. So if there's somebody you guys want us to interview or want to be on the show, send us an email or reach out to us on social media and all that. And then we'll see if we can follow up on that. But we're trying to bring you guys more content as the weeks and months go by. But before we sign off for the week, Mike, go ahead and let them know where they can find us and follow us.
At the Last Round 12, Instagram and Twitter. And the next big fight coming up, Gervonta Davis against Lamont Roach on March 1st. Amazon
Prime?
Yes. Yeah, Amazon pay-per-view, right?
Yeah, Amazon Prime Video pay-per-view. That's what you call it, right? That one's going to be interesting to see too, because that their dates are kind of dwindling over there too. Davis seems like the only consistent one. I know Benavidez was just on there, but it seems like Davis is the only cash cow over there. So, but we will see with these TV and streaming contracts and deals in this crazy sport. But for once again, I'm Danny Z. For my co-host Michael Shepard, this is the Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round